Matthew chapter 12. One day, Jesus and his disciples were walking through a field of grain on the Sabbath, a day when work was not allowed. His disciples were hungry, so they started to pick some grain to eat. When some religious leaders called Pharisees saw this, they said to Jesus, "Look, your disciples are doing something they shouldn't be doing on the Sabbath." Jesus replied, "Don't you remember the story about David? When he and his disciples were hungry, they went into God's house and ate special bread that only the priests were allowed to eat. And don't you know that on the Sabbath, the priests in the temple work but are not considered guilty? I'm telling you, someone more important than the temple is here. If you understood the saying, 'I want kindness, not sacrifices,' you wouldn't accuse innocent people, because the Son of Man, that's me, is in charge of the Sabbath." Then Jesus went into their meeting place, and there was a man with a hand that couldn't move. The Pharisees wanted to accuse Jesus, so they asked him, "Is it okay to heal on the Sabbath?" Jesus answered, "If one of you had a sheep, and it fell into a hole on the Sabbath, wouldn't you help it out? A person is much more valuable than a sheep, so it's okay to do good things on the Sabbath." Then he told the man, "Stretch out your hand." The man stretched it out, and it was healed, just like the other hand. But the Pharisees left and started planning how to kill Jesus. Jesus knew about their plan and left that place. Many people followed him, and he healed all the sick people. But he told them not to tell anyone who he was. This was to fulfill what the prophet Isaiah had said, "Here is my servant I have chosen, the one I love and am pleased with. I will put my spirit on him, and he will tell all nations what is right. He won't argue or shout, no one will hear his voice in the streets. He won't break a bruised reed or put out a smoldering wick, until he has brought justice to victory. People from all nations will hope in him." Then they brought him a man who was controlled by a demon and couldn't see or talk. Jesus healed him, and the man could talk and see. Everyone was amazed and asked, "Could this be the son of David?" But when the Pharisees heard this, they said, "This man can only drive out demons because he gets his power from Beelzebub, the prince of demons." Jesus knew what they were thinking and said, "A kingdom that fights against itself will be destroyed. A family that fights against itself will not last. If Satan drives out Satan, he is fighting against himself. How then can his kingdom last? And if I drive out demons by Beelzebub, who do your people use to drive them out? So they will be your judges. But if I drive out demons by the Spirit of God, then God's kingdom has come to you. Also, how can someone go into a strong man's house and steal his stuff, unless he first ties up the strong man? Then he can rob his house. Anyone who's not on my side is against me, and anyone who doesn't gather with me scatters. So I'm telling you, people can be forgiven for any sin or bad thing they say, but if they say bad things about the Holy Spirit, they won't be forgiven. If someone says something against the Son of Man, that's me, they can be forgiven. But if they say something against the Holy Spirit, they won't be forgiven, not now or ever. If a tree is good, its fruit will be good. If a tree is bad, its fruit will be bad. You can tell what a tree is like by its fruit. You bunch of snakes! How can you, who are evil, say anything good? Whatever is in your heart determines what you say. A good person says good things because they have goodness in their heart. An evil person says evil things because they have evilness in their heart. But I'm warning you, one day, everyone will have to explain every careless word they've said. Your words will either prove you're right or they'll prove you're wrong. Then some of the Pharisees and teachers asked Jesus, "Teacher, we want to see a miracle from you." Jesus answered, "Only a bad and unfaithful generation would ask for a miracle. The only sign they will get is the sign of the prophet Jonah. Just as Jonah spent 3 days and nights in the belly of a big fish, so will the Son of Man spend 3 days and nights in the heart of the earth. On Judgment Day, the people of Nineveh will stand up against this generation and condemn it. They changed their ways when Jonah preached to them, and now someone greater than Jonah is here. The Queen of the South will also stand up against this generation on Judgment Day. She came from far away to listen to Solomon's wisdom, and now someone greater than Solomon is here. When an evil spirit leaves a person, it wanders around dry places looking for a resting place, but doesn't find one. Then it says, "I'll go back to the person I left." When it comes back, it finds the person clean and tidy. Then the spirit finds 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they all move in. In the end, that person is worse off than before. That's how it will be with this evil generation. While Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers came and wanted to talk to him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are outside. They want to talk to you." Jesus asked, "Who are my mother and my brothers?" Then he pointed to his disciples and said, "These are my mother and my brothers. Anyone who does what my Father in heaven wants is my brother, sister, and mother."